Please be seated. The floor is now once again given to Judge Lavange to continue his questioning of this witness. You may proceed.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, Mr. Witness, if you feel fatigued, if you need to observe a break, please feel free to tell us so. We want to make sure that you are feeling in good form. Now, returning to E3858 that we were examining earlier, I was seeking some clarifications with respect to the composition of Office K1. On the first page of that document, we can see the name Peng Lin, who is cited as the general of K1 and K4. Can you please confirm what I stated earlier, that is to say, Peng Lin was also known as Ken?
But
Yes, he also bears the name of Ken.
Est-ce que vous pouvez, si vous avez eu le temps de regarder,
I'm not sure if you had some time to examine this list, but are there any names that trigger your memory? Does the name Bong Tan, who is cited as the Chief of Office K1, or Bong Sin, who is listed as the chairman of the guards who accompanies Uncle during his travels. Sin is listed in row number 3. Do any of these names refresh your memory?
Yes, I knew them. Tan, Sin, Horn. I knew these people.
est-ce que vous connaissiez
Did you know a person called Sem? Ket Tor alias Sem. Does this name refresh your memory?
Judge Lavange, could you please repeat the name of the person as the interpreter did not get it?
Oui, je parlais
Yes, of course. I was referring to a person who would have been called Sem. His authentic name would have purportedly been Ket Tor.
but
Sam was the wife of Lin or Can.
Alors, on va passer à une autre page. Dans la version française, c'est la
Let us move on to another page. It is on page 9 of the French version. It is under the subheading K7. I would ask you to refer to ERN pages 0064, 34, 84. Those are the French ERN numbers. This is a list concerning K7.
Voilà, donc il est indiqué bureau cassette.
Under the title K7, Messenger Services, Transportation, Transport rather, and Telephones. And the first name that is listed is Han. Chairman, Office K7. It is then followed by the name Ton. Can you please just do a cursory reading of this list go over the names and tell me if any of those names refresh your memory.
I knew the name Han, but I don't think he was the chairman of Office K7. Han was the chairman of production at K8, as I recall it.
Chân ca
There could be a reorganization, and I may not know this person by the name of Han in this context. As the person by the name of Han, whom I knew, was the chairman of the production unit near Basak River, which was also known as K8.
Alors, passons à une autre.
Let us move to the section that can be found 2 pages onwards, K13.
Le RN en français, c'est le 0060.
The French ERN pages are 0073, or rather 00391734 are the English ERN pages. K13, telegrams. The first person listed is Pon, who is the chairman of Office K13, former teacher in Kompong Cham. He was born in Tul Sambor. In 1970, he joined the district military, so on and so forth. The second name listed is Yos, who carries the title Deputy Chairman, Office K13. The third person listed is At, who is a member of Office K13. Then comes the name Sen in 4th place. Do any of these names, including Lak and Shang, call to mind anything? And why were they assigned to K13? Because I assumed that telegrams were assigned to K18.
I do not get it, because Bond was my supervisor, and here he was also in charge of the telegram together with you. I never heard of K13. I did not know whether it was newly formed. As for the names of Ad and Lak and Sriang, I knew them. I cannot recall the person by the name of Sain, but I am certain of the name Pon and Ju. But here, their names were put under K13. It should not be K13, it should be K18.
Bien, dernier.
Very well. The last heading I wish to address is on the last page. It states that K1 is found just outside Uncle's house. And this is on page 14 to 16. on the French version, 0060, 64.
Alors, il y a un certain nombre de noms, là encore. Tout d'abord, le nom de...
It is written that Dim is the responsible person for K1. Te is listed as a member of Office K1, followed by Pik, Chung, Chat, Long. Do any of these names refresh your memory or call to mind anything? This is on ERN English page 00391-737.
Is this the defense team outside K1? I cannot recall the names since I did not know them well.
Parmi les noms que vous avez lus là,
Of the names that are listed on this document, do you recall if any of these individuals were smashed, eliminated, purged, or cleansed? At the time, what did you know about the people who were assigned to K1 and who subsequently disappeared?
No, I cannot recall that. On this page, it lists the names of those who provided the protection outside, and I did not know them well.
alors pour terminer, j'indique
To conclude, I would point out that we have a certain number of documents that come from S21. The first being D 108/26.227. It is entitled Section of Ministry S71. Now, the person listed in row number 7 of this list is called San Sim. He is identified as the Deputy Chief of Office K18. It would appear that he entered S21 on the 6th of December 1978. In row number 13, there is the name Uk Pan, alias Pon, who is identified as Chief of the Office of Telephones, and it would appear that he entered S21 on the 4th of April 1978. At number 15, we see the name Tong Han, described as the Chief of the Messenger Group for Office 7. It would appear that he entered S21 on the 24th of May 1978. At number 19, there is the name Tun Kim Shroi, alias Shreng, identified as Chief of Group of Office K18. Sir, do any of these names ring a bell? Did you hear about the disappearances of any one of these individuals?
No, I did not know. I only knew about the disappearance of Bond, my supervisor. As for the rest, I did not know when or how they disappeared.
Bien, je vous remercie.
Very well. I wish to thank you, Mr. Witness. I wish to thank you for all of your efforts in answering my question, to thank you for your testimony. And Mr. President, those are all the questions that I have.
President, thank you. I'd like now to give the floor to Kiev and Pon's defense to put questions to this witness. International Defense Counsel for Nuon Chea, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. I'm not trying to cut the line here. I just have a quick announcement to make. With respect to two documents which were recently placed on the case file, that's D200-3.11 and D200-3.12. Those are audio recordings or transcripts of audio recordings of the interview of this witness. Pursuant to Judge Fenz's ruling from the other day, I just wanted to give everyone notice that we may utilize these documents. They're not on the interface. Obviously, one we received afternoon yesterday and one has just come on the file now. So I just wanted to mention that for notice purposes. We may make use of them. I'm not saying we will, but everyone's seen them. They're part of the witness statement. This is the witness that we're dealing with today. And I think there was an assumption that was made or a presumption that was made last week or maybe the week before that the witness statements would be sort of assumed to be used by all the parties. So I'm just flagging this. That's all I needed to say. Thank you.
President, the floor is now given to Kiev and Pon's defense. Kung Sam On, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, everyone in and around the courtroom. Good morning, Mr. Nong Sapong. My name is Kung Sam On, a defense counsel for Kiev Sampon. And on behalf of my client, Kiev Sampon, I'd like to thank you for your valuable time that you spent to testify in details in this courtroom for the last couple of days, despite your state of being unwell. I have some questions that I need your clarification on. They are mostly based on the questions and your response so far. First, I'd like you to clarify your status as a decoder at Office K18, that you said there were the outside and inside teams. what I want to know is, what was the responsibility for the incoming messages to your office? And what was the difference, the responsibility for the outside and the inside team? Or was it the same? Or was it based on the urgency, on the confidentiality of the message? Can you enlighten us on this point? Response. Let me clarify the work of my group working at K1, not K18. At K1, we had the inside decoder team, and I was at some night Sotiru school, which was another decoding team, and we were tasked also with the training. When it comes to the work of these two teams, and as I have stated so far, it depends on the nature of the message. If the message did not have anything to do with the enemy or the enemy incursion, for instance, I would use that kind of message for the training to teach the younger workers. So we kind of taught them on the job. For example, if I was responsible for the northeast zone, as I was, but later on, due to the intensified situation at the border, and in order for sufficient communication, for in-time replies, then the northeast messages were decoded inside, and that's how it was organized. If I am uncertain, please ask me additional questions. Counsel, thank you for your clarification and the correction that you made. My question is, for the outside team, how many workers for that team? And what about the inside team? How many members? Response. For my outside group, there were those children that I trained. There were 4 of the young ones who could assist me with my work. In total, for those youths who could carry out the task in my team, there were about 10 of them. Regarding the inside members, there were only a few of them. There were not many. Counsel, thank you. And for your outside team, did you designate any particular individuals into smaller teams for the purpose of decoding messages? Response, yes, indeed, there was. Because we actually received messages from more than 10 spearheads. So one of us could be responsible for 3 or 4 targets. Or some would be responsible for only 2 or 3. Counsel, thank you. When or after your staff decoded the message, was you the one who would verify the content of the decoding messages? Response: as I was the one who bore the responsibility outside, I verified the content, including the spelling errors or the accuracy of the text. And if the decoding made some errors or had to understand, then I would have to verify it and amend it. So I did all these aspects before the message was sent to K1. Counsel, thank you. Did your office verify the information contained in each message? For example, one message was sent to your office, and did you verify the content of that message, whether it was accurate, or was your sole responsibility was just to decode the message and that was it? Response: regarding whether the content was accurate or not, was not our authority to verify it. We only decoded the message that was sent to us. So we did not know whether the transmission of the report and the content was accurate or not. As long as it was within the message, we simply decoded it. Counsel, thank you. In relation to the carbon copy to uncles, as you have stated so far, you confirmed that when you decoded, after you decoded the message, you would only put in the date of the decoding, and then it was your supervisor who would authorize for the line copied to. My question is, what was the procedure to verify that the documents that you sent would be reach those intended recipients? Response: I did not know whether those messages would reach its or their intended recipients. And as for the typing of the copied to line, if I myself was certain that I would type it in to this uncle or that uncle based on the existing principle, and usually there was no change. It was kind of a regular. So usually the copy lines too was regular to those intended uncles and office. However, in certain cases, when I was uncertain before I put in the copied line through, I had to make a phone call first to verify it as who would be the intended recipients. And once I receive the information from Pond, then that line will be typed.
If I am not clear, then I would simply relay the message in its entirety.
បាទសូមអរគុណនៅក្នុងពេល
Question. When you were decoding each telegram, did you upon receiving the telegrams, did you ever see the names of individuals who were in the carbon copies, or did you only see the telegrams and then those who were supposed to be copied to was added later?
But
Response. No, I never received such telegrams.
បាទសូមអរគុណ
Counsel, thank you. I have a few additional questions concerning the organization of the Communist Party of Cambodia. You testified at length on this issue with the prosecution as well as the lead co-lawyers for the civil parties. In your earlier testimony, you use certain words to refer to the party or the Communist Party of Cambodia, so I would like to ask you for clarification on the use of terms. For example, you use the word center. In your previous testimony before the chamber, I would like to bring up an example. That was a testimony on the 3rd of September 2012 on page 16 of the Khmer transcript and 19 and 20 in English and 19 in French. You used the word center office and age 70 committee and so on. And you also mentioned that the secretive code number of age 70 was referred to the party center. So once again, you use the word center, center office, center committee, age 70 committee, age 70, age 70 committee, standing committee. So these were all the terms you used in your testimony. Could you make the distinction between or among these terms? Do you understand whether or not each term was referred to any specific entity? Can you make any distinction between the terms you used?
បាទយើងឃើញការ
Response. I understand that there were many terms and connotations of words, but what we commonly saw at that time was office age 70. When people refer to it as Angka, actually it was age 70. When people refer to the party committee, it was also referred to as Office 870. So I was rather confused myself. I did not know who sat in the standing committee and who sat in other committees. And it was my personal understanding the applied meaning of that was that we actually at the telegram unit, we did not care whether or not they were from anywhere or who was doing what, but we had to send the telegram to Office 870. And my understanding at the time of the internal arrangement of the party was very limited, and I was at the lower level position, so I did not understand how they would resort to using any particular code names for a particular entity.
បាទសូមអរគុណ
Counsel, thank you. So if my understanding is correct, you find it difficult to assess the specific or intended meaning of each code names. But in the interest of my client, I would like to ask you for your clarification. So far, in your unit, you did not make any distinction what was referred to Office 870 or 870 Committee or the Party Center. So in your unit, you did not make that distinction. Is that correct?
Young man.
Response. That is correct. Question. Thank you for clarification. I would like to now move on to another question. Do you have a clear understanding between the Standing Committee and Central Committee of the Communist Party of Cambodia? Response. I actually responded to the same questions by the lawyers for the civil parties. Actually, I said in my early testimony that even the leaders who were in the leadership level did not understand the internal arrangement of the party. And how could a person at my level, which is very low in the organizational structure, know who was sitting in the standing committee or central committee? Counsel. So is it a fair summary to say that you cannot make any distinction between the standing committee and the central committee? Is that fair to summarize so? Response, yes, it is. Counsel. Thank you, Mr. Nong Supong. I do not have any further questions for you, and I thank you, Mr. President and Your Honors, for the opportunity to put the questions to the witness.
Bonjour, Monsieur le.
Good morning, witness. My name is Arthur Verken. I am also counsel for Mr. Kyo Sampan. I also have a few quick questions to put to you. I know that you have perhaps answered these questions somewhat sketchily. To your knowledge, in Phnom Penh, during the DK regime, when you worked for it, did the different ministries have their own decoding or coding teams, as well as their own telegraph machines and lines?
No, they didn't. Other ministries did not have the encoding or decoding unit, or not even the telegram unit. But as for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I am not sure. That's why I dare not comment on it. But apart from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there was no any decoding or encoding unit attached to other ministry except the Ministry of Defense. Of course, the Air Force, the infantry forces, as well as the Navy, they had their encoding and decoding unit, as well as the landlines and also telephone contact.
Merci.
Thank you. You have understood, witness, that this tribunal does have not only the written records of your interviews with investigators, but audio recordings of interviews you had with the investigators of the tribunal. Regarding the first interview you gave to to the investigators on the 18th of February 2009, it is D200/3.11. The French version is 00843072, English 00844. French version 00843-072, English ERN 00844-077, Khmer 00838-464, and you stated that Kyo Sampan did not have a telegram. He only communicated by handwritten letters. Otherwise, he phoned us from his office. He would ask us to write letters and send them to such and such a location. And then you explained that once those letters were coded and given a reference number, you send them to outside locations. You said this before this chamber on the 29th of August at 11:55, page 52 of the French. You stated that messages by Kyo Sampan absolutely passed through your unit. Do you know, with regard to Mr. Kyo Sampan, whether you were the person in charge of all those messages?
As for my communication with Mr. Kyo Sampon, as well as with his team at that time, was as follow. If it was a letter, then he would have it typed, and then he would have that letter sent through a messenger to my unit in order to encode the message. However, if the letters was short and urgent, then his office would communicate to my office through telephone. He actually had the authority to get the letter or message sent to K1, and if there was any message relating to my unit, then K1 would refer that letter to my unit. So what I am trying to say is that it was not every letter from him that had to go through my unit. He had the authority to communicate with another team of mine who was stationed at K1 if he had any urgent or certain message he wanted to send there.
Alors,
May I ask you to simply explain the encoding system? When you talk of encoding, are you talking of translating, transcribing into the Morse code, or you are talking of assigning a number to a message in order to make it more discrete? Was your service also in charge of converting a normal text into Morse, or you just simply encoded it for purposes of confidentiality?
But
my unit was to encode the message. By encoding, I mean the content of a letter which was typewritten or written, then it had to be encoded in order to turn them into code numbers. So we would not read it as letters as such, but it was the code numbers. But that was not considered secretive code. But if we want to make it into a secret code, then we had to use Morse code. Once we transform it into using Morse code, then it turned to be the secret telegram. But we used the Morse. Morse itself was not the secret code. We used titita, and we did not have to encode numbers.
គេអាចអានបាន
If we used Morse code, then people could read it and understand it.
បាទលោកយល់ច្បាស់ហើយនៅ
I hope I have made myself clear.
malheureusement, vous savez que
Unfortunately, as you know, what you say is interpreted successively into different languages, and there may be distortion between what you say and what I hear in French. And there may well have been such distortion. What I heard the interpreter say was that the Morse code was secret. And at the end of your answer, you stated that the Morse code was not secret. So what you stated was contradictory. As far as I am concerned, the Morse code is an international language known to everyone. A French text that is written in Morse code does not encrypt the document. When you encrypt a document, you give it numbers. Is that correct?
ដោយលោកមានប្រសាសន៍
Response: Yes, you are correct. Actually, we did not use Morse code in order to encrypt the message. It was the ordinary letters that could be understood by the readers. For example, people who speak French or English, they would understand. For example, Cambodia, it would be written in Latin words. Then you did not have to decode this written script.
មករបស់ខ្ញុំដែលប្រើ
The moths we used were of two types. One was the moth of Khmer language, and the other one was for English or French. Those who were in the telegram unit would be able to use the moth code both in Khmer and in French or English.
Je vous remercie pour cette réponse.
Thank you for this very precise answer, which indeed clarifies what you stated earlier. Tell me, a while ago you referred to open letters. Is that equated with one of the letters you referred to? You talked of one of the letters by Kyo Sampan, saying that it was an open letter. What did you mean when you referred to that letter as an open letter?
By open letter, I mean that message was not secretive in nature. In other words, it was the letters about the distribution of materials and things like that, so that letter is informed to the zones, and zones level would know how much material they could anticipate, and particularly when those material be delivered to the zone, so that the zones would arrange the pick-up or so of those materials sent from the center. But as for the letters that needed to be encoded or encrypted, it was different. But these kinds of open letter, it did not require such complex encrypting method. Sometimes we receive this letter and then we simply encoded the numbers and then sent them across to the zones. We did not have to go through many layers of encoding and encrypting. And as for the other types of open letter, by ways of example, if he had an open instruction or a statement, a public statement to be made for the interest of the public, then we can use Morse code in Khmer to type the message. For example, if there was an instruction for organizing national festivals or so, then these would be types using Morse code, and we send the information to the public that the president of the state presidium would address the public on the festival day. Then that kinds of letters or information was meant for the public, and it was even sent overseas as well for foreign friends. These types of letters or statements did not go through the encoding process. We merely use Morse code. So that distinguished between the secret nature and the open nature of the letters or statement.
Je vous remercie. Et
Thank you. And did such letters also pass through your service? Is that correct?
បាទអានេះ
This was like the circular or a directive sometime. So whenever he needed to address the public during the Khmer New Year or the International New Year, then he would issue a circular in order to inform members of the public to be ready to listen to his public statement.
Et cette circulaire passait.
And did such circulars pass through your office?
បាទ
More often than not, for the public statement or circular, he would send it to K1. Then K1 would relay the message. For example, the K1 would decide where to send this letter or statement to. Of course, K1 had the authority to circulate this letter to every zones across the country, but I was only responsible for certain zone communication. Then these types of letter would go through K1 first. And I can bring up a specific example on the issue of material distribution. Then he would communicate the message to my unit. He did not normally send it through K1. He would send it directly to my unit.
Je comprends, merci.
I do understand. Thank you. I would like to know whether during the period when you worked in Phnom Penh, there was some kind of mistrust vis-à-vis the telephone. What I mean is this. Did one of the persons who sent messages to you do so confidentially by phone, or he would have preferred to have it brought to you or delivered to you by a courier or a messenger? Was there any such mistrust of the telephone at the time?
បាទខ្ញុំ
Response: that I do not know.
Je vois, Monsieur le Président, qu'il est midi.
Mr. President, I see it is noon. As I would like to go into another line of questioning, perhaps it is the right time for us to take the break.
The President: thank you. The time is now appropriate for lunch adjournment. The chamber will adjourn now until 1:30 this afternoon. Witness Mr. Nong Sopong, can you assess your state of health as of now, whether or not you can continue providing testimony this afternoon? Witness: with utmost respect, Mr. President, even though my state of health is rather fragile, but I am committed to providing this testimony to the chamber, so I will endeavor to do so this afternoon. The President: court officer is instructed to facilitate the venue and place for the witness to raise and have him back to this courtroom before 1:30 this afternoon. And if necessary, Mr. Witness, you may let us know, then the court officers will engage the treating doctors or medical doctors who are on duty in the court to examine your state of health, as the case may be. I note the defense counsel is on his feet. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very quickly, I've just been informed that our client is suffering from a backache, a headache, and a general lack of concentration. And for those reasons, he wishes to retire to the holding cell for the afternoon. And that is our application this morning. Thank you very much.
The President. The Chamber notes the request by Mr. Nguyen Chia through his defense counsel to follow the proceeding remotely through audio-visual means for the remainder of today's proceedings due to his health reason. He cannot sit for a long time and he has problems concentrating in the afternoon. And we consider this request appropriate, so the request is granted. Mr. Nguyen Chia is granted leave to follow the proceeding from the holding cell downstairs via audio-visual means. And Mr. Nguyen Chia has expressly waived his right not to be present directly in this courtroom. The defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia is required to submit the waiver with the signature or thumbprint of Mr. Nguyen Chia, and AV assistants are instructed to connect the audio-visual link for Mr. Nguyen Chia to the holding cell downstairs for the remainders of today's proceeding. Security guards are instructed to bring Mr. Nguyen Chia and Mr. Kieu Sampon to the holding cell downstairs. This afternoon, Mr. Nguyen Chia is to remain in the holding cell where he will be connected to the audio-visual link to follow the proceeding. And Mr. Kieu Sampon is to be brought to this courtroom before 1:30. The court is now adjourned. Rise.